the general meeting for Community Board 2 for the month of April. I'd like to remind everyone that this Hollywood Squares version of the Community Board 2 meeting will be recorded. And with that, another welcome. We have reports that will take pretty much most of the evening, and you'll have representation from most of the members of the executive committee. I remind the members of the executive committee that when your item appears on the agenda, if you will introduce yourself, and if you would also do the courtesy to mention who your vice chair or chairs are, please do so. With the exception of land use. Land use, you just stick to your normal format, okay? All right. And with that, I'll introduce myself. I'm Lenny Singletary, Chair Community Board 2. Our vice chairs are Mr. Leonard Jordan. Lenny, raise your hand for me one time. Great. And then we have Barbara Zollig-Ringer. Barbara, would you raise your hand? Great. So those are our vice chairs. Jessica Thurston is our secretary. There she is. And with that, I have an approval for the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
And second by Mr. Lastawecki. So motion by Mr. Myers, second by Mr. Lastawecki. I'm hopeful there's no discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our March meeting? Are there any noted corrections? Okay, should anybody have any corrections post this period of the agenda? I ask that you send your corrections or edits to the board office, and it will make sure they get captured in the official minutes that are posted. So thank you. Chairperson's report. So a couple of things I want to mention just in whole. We've been through a period of time now. Here we are in April, and I want to just mention that we've in my mind are starting to turn the corner as it relates to the pandemic. The pandemic, when you think about where we were a year ago this time, we weren't even communicating, right? And so it's amazing to think that a year later we're communicating, albeit we're not in person. It's just we're in a different space. Having said that, let's still remain vigilant and diligent in making sure that we follow the protocols and the science around what it takes to be healthy. I'm not here to encourage people to or not to take a vaccine. I hope that you would, but I'm not going to spend time encouraging you to do that. That's a personal decision. And, there is some level of HIPAA laws required to that. So I hope that everyone who makes that decision does it and they follow the sciences and feel comfortable. I'd also say that please monitor your health. If you happen to take a vaccine, I don't care which one it is, monitor your health. If you're not feeling well, say something. Get checked out. Don't just assume that, I'll sleep it off. I don't recommend that for anyone. I don't care who the manufacturer is. You know your body better than anyone else. Be diligent and listen to what your body is telling you. Additionally, what I would say is let's be really careful, because there are still portions within the district. While I like to believe that the district, and I confidently believe that the district is a wonderful district, we still have pockets where spurts of crime take place. Different items of criminality are starting to pop up. Had conversations with the commanding officer of both the 88th and the 84. And so while they're doing an excellent job trying to protect us, we need to also be on alert and be aware. So, let's be careful when you're texting or when you're communicating. You're not always aware of your surroundings. And nowadays, it doesn't really make a difference day or night, because once again, we are living in a great community, but the activity is independent of sun or moon. So let's be careful in that context. I'd also like to mention that we have several races happening within the district. So from a council perspective, from a borough president perspective, let's engage where we can, where there are forums, to listen and hear what the candidates are suggesting. I encourage everyone to do so. It seems like all of the conversations are taking place in a virtual manner. I would suggest that if you have the ability and you are aware of when virtual events are taking place, please encourage you to participate. It's important to know who you're voting for, know the issues of the individuals that are voting, and feel confident that, when you do vote, and once again, when you do vote, you vote for the candidate that best suits and aligns with you. It may not be best, may not be perfect, but hopefully the best that aligns with you. And then the last thing I would say is, as we start to turn the corner, and as you listen to statements and directives that are coming out of City Hall, the mayor's office, the state and the governor's office, we're at a point where the contemplation of going back to work in a physical space is starting to exist. The Finance and Personnel Committee will have to do the same thing as well as it relates to our staff. I continue to echo, our staff has done a tremendous job given the multiple challenges that they've had to face. I mean, Carol Ann, I think, finally got a chance to take some days where she's getting some rest. Taya is here, but if I just single out Taya for a minute, I don't know how many people under the sound of my voice started a job one week and then the next week was out for a pandemic, hasn't been in the office and been trying to make things work without even having a full appreciation of the handbook, knowing everybody's name and trying to figure out all the protocols. So if you put yourself in Taya's shoes for a moment and think about how you would react, and then you see how things have happened and how we've continued to do well, we haven't really missed a beat. I think it's worth some acknowledgement and appreciation for all that she and the office have had to go through. And I just single her out because she's on the phone. I've heard many comments from people saying, "Oh, Taylor's been wonderful. We've had so many improvements with the way technology is working, the streamline of how you're able to get information, the use of shared drives, and all of that within the realm of being successful from a security perspective. It's not something we should overlook. I know everybody's singing her praises. She's all right." I'm only joking, but I just wanted to say thank you and appreciate her for that as well. Last but not least, I do want to remind everyone that as you're running your committee meetings and as you're participating in committee meetings, actually I have one other thing I want to mention as well. Continue to make sure that we force an environment that affords the community to speak, right? It's a lot different when you're able to speak in person or you can insert yourself and engage. But at the end of the day, while this may be volunteer, we all volunteer with the same passion and commitment to want to better our community. The best way to better the community is to hear from the community. So I would encourage everyone, it's just more or less a reminder, there's no subliminal message here, it's just a reminder that as you have these meetings, let's hear from the community, let's give them the opportunity to raise the concerns that they have. And if there are instances where people need information, let's get that to them as soon as possible. And then I would also remind everyone, while we're having a meeting, in the bottom corner, you'll see on your screen maybe a little button that says chat. From time to time, go into the chat. Make sure you pay attention to the information that's there. A lot of information is being communicated effectively to everyone that is on the call, or just general information as a whole. So if you can, from time to time, check that. And then the last thing I want to mention under my report is that many of you have heard or discussed or have engaged about the rezoning or the potential development that's happening within the Gowanus Canal. Independent of how many blocks, what square footage, what impact, be it large, small, material or not, we're not going to skirt the obligation that is before us as a community board. And so while there are multiple statements that are being made about how we're going to engage, what I can assure you is that collectively, what Community Board has always done is be the voice for the community that we serve. And so I caution and advise everyone now to be prepared for a hearing that will take place on that topic. What we're trying to do, like we've done in the past, and for those who have been on the board long enough to remember Atlantic Yards and the instances where we've had joint meetings with other community boards, in the form of spirit of democracy and collaboration, we're looking to do the same thing here. It's just been a challenge to get dates solidified and locked down, but that will take place. And so rest assured that it will take place. We'll try to give as much advance notice as accustomed to our bylaws and the charter to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on. But we'll try to do a robust and a fully engaged conversation so that each of you and everyone who's able to participate as a board member and as a community member is fully aware of the opportunity to ask questions and receive answers. So with that, I'll pause. I know I've said a lot. That will conclude my report for this evening. And before I turn it over to Taya to give the district office report, I'll pause and just ask if anyone has any brief questions. Fantastic. Taya, turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. 1 second. It always seems to be faster to drive the screen for somebody else than it is for myself. I'm just going to share updates on 4 quick things. And actually, Chair Singletary reminded me of one additional item. If you haven't received an email from Carolyn Church already, there is a hearing planned for Thursday, April 29th regarding planning together. So you could save that date and she'll send more information when she returns next week. I promise this is not a big slideshow. I just wanted to give some visuals to some data. It has been a full year of remote operations, so it's a good time to sort of do a quarterly overview. There is more granular data in the district office report that the board members receive by email. We intentionally don't share that because it includes confidential information about specific constituent complaints, etc. I just wanted to give a really quick overview of some of the administrative communication numbers that are included for the first time this month. In a nutshell, we are processing about 1,000 communications per month in this office now. And just to go really quickly left to right, so public newsletters means that we have at some point over the last decade and increasingly this year signed ourselves up for every newsletter that we can find that pertains to any organization or business in our geographic district. We do read every single one of those, and we've been collecting and curating those into the Friday news and events emails that have actually become our most popular communications, and I'll go into that in the next deck. Municipal notices, we get about 166 of those a month. Those are from every agency in the city, and we have found a way to start filing those publicly. So that link is in our public drive, and it's a public notices folder that is searchable by topic. So this is handy both for citizens who want to help themselves to information. It's also handy for the staff answering phones, because if anybody in our district calls us, we can about what is the situation with parking on Dean Street. I can Google inside that folder and pull up the municipal notice about it. The land use committee is processing about 64 applications a month, which is increasing probably due to weather. Likewise, SLA inquiries have been steady. We've got about 24 of those per month. The general constituent inquiries resolved, so those are more complicated constituent inquiries. The details are in the district office report. So these are things that require more than just a simple referral to 311 portals or a simple phone call. This is a constituent inquiry that usually requires another agency being involved. And Chair Singletary has fielded 5 press inquiries this month. Okay, so constituent communications channels. Don't get too excited or sad about any of these numbers. I think what's more interesting here is actually the rate of change. So just taking it from the top, what is most interesting, the public drive is not even a year old. That public drive is seeing over 7,500 unique visitors right now. And that's not unique visits. That's not one person looking at 7,500 documents in the folder. That's unique visitors. And it's growing very quickly. The live calendar was under 300 at first, the first time we looked at it. So I expect that that's going to grow equally quickly. The email, so that number may surprise some folks. Just a note, and it's explained further in the district office report. 862 is the actual readers. So that's people that actually clicked open that email and read at least one item or interacted with at least one item in that email. We have more than double that amount on our email list. Happy to report that that readership is only slightly up from last night or from last month, but overall the readership is up 59% since this time last year, and our subscribers are up 26% from last year. YouTube is growing surprisingly quickly, 316 unique views on average this month. And again, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, don't be sad about those numbers. We've barely started them. I would say that they're going to get a lot more attention this summer when we have no meetings and more staff time to allocate. But again, I think it's interesting the rate of growth of those. So in summary on this page, I would say if it's our task to meet people where they are, this is pretty good evidence that they are certainly on the public drive and appreciating those documents. And the results are obviously in the constituent engagement. Lots of really positive growth here, large part due to the availability and ease of online meetings. What was very interesting was a reporter from the Brooklyn paper actually rounded up all of the numbers from all of the borough president's offices. CB2 was one of 3 community boards that received over 100 board member applications, which is more than any Brooklyn board, including ours, received in at least the last 3 years. I think that's a really good indication that people are interested and wanting to be engaged. And as I always do, I'll just close with a little plug for those 2, hopefully very easy to remember links. And that is it from the office this month.
Thank you, Taya. I appreciate the update. You know, as I said, when you all bestowed enough confidence in me to serve as the chair, having had the opportunity to learn from John Dew, Shirley McCray, and Irene Jana, I wanted to make sure that we did things differently. We looked at the way we were retracting information. And so, not that there was anything wrong with the way things were being done in the past, but as it pertains to what we used to call the district manager's report, you know, it was a lot of paragraphs, a lot of information, but there was so much more that I feel like we were not really sharing adequately with the board members and the community. I hope that you'll see from the way Tay and the Office of Coordinated Information, just the magnitude of the information that they feel, so that this gives you a brief glimpse of the work that they do, right? So it's more than just going to meetings and providing reports. There are things that happen between the hours that they're in the office or currently at home where you can see what the magnitude of the type of information they feel. Additionally, I hope this also provided some insight for the value add of having social media platforms in a way we're able to have other forms of communication to our constituents, to our district, to everyone that, you know, follows community board too. And for that, no one person can't take credit for that. I can't take credit for that. It's all of us. So together as board members, this is an example and a perfect demonstration of the partnership between office and members for how successful we are. So hats off to everyone for the way that we're raising the bar, making community board 2 a better place to collaborate and communicate with our constituents. Let me pause there. Does anybody have any questions for both Taya or I related to the district office report? All right, great.
Actually, I do. I'm sorry. This is NBlackshear. Taya, is this report in the Google Drive?
Hi, Nan. Yes, it is.
Okay. Very good report. Very interesting. So the Twitter and the Instagram has not been launched yet?
We have. They're just very
just
new.
launched. It's very new. It's just launched.
Just launched. Okay. Very good. And then there's a question about the constituencies. You had a section there, I think it was about 30 plus, that constituency that was resolved. Did you include in that report the amount of constituency requests, grand total, that comes into the office? Because I don't think people realize just how much you receive.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we did not. We discussed it. I asked if we held that because I wanted it to be brief. I wanted to just make sure that we were able to capture what we were confidently able to report on. Clearly, to your point, Nan, there's a lot more. Maybe that's something we can enhance or add, but I think for many of us, it's the first time we've seen information provided this way. So it's a work in progress, but we wanted to just give a clearer snapshot of what we've done in the office to date.
Understood. Excellent snapshot. I only say that because I want everyone, public, board members, etc., to see just how hard the staff works in terms of the amount of reports or inquiries that comes into your office remotely.
A good
Well,
example might be that we actually didn't include any count of the number of emails we get just from these 50 board members.
Understood. I have other questions, but I'll send them email.
Happy to send you data, Nan.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nan.
This
ahead,
is
John.
John, and I just have to echo that this is an absolutely wonderful report, giving us a very true sense of the activity increasing in our community. When you load documents into that public drive, is there a way of knowing that new documents have been added, or do we need to check routinely?
That is a great question that is easy to answer. When you go to Google Drive, on the left-hand side, this is a super technical answer and I apologize for that, but on the left-hand side, you can actually click to see recent documents, which will show you all of the most recent documents that have been uploaded, regardless of which folder they're in. So there are many different ways to sort the information. And John, you know you can call me and I will tell you how to do that.
And you know I will. Don't encourage me.
Here, don't
Thank you,
encourage him. Any other questions? All right, great. Again, thank you to everyone. This is a collaborative effort. I appreciate it. Moving to agenda item number 6. Here's where we've moved up the agenda a bit, once again, under the category of just making some changes. Oftentimes we hear that there are elected officials who are juggling our meetings and other community board meetings because we happen to share the same calendar frequency. So with that, we've decided to make a little bit of a change and bring some of those elected official comments to the front of the table. As I look through the chat and I look through the different screens, the elected that I see at the moment is NBlackshear, representing Borough President Eric L. Adams. And so with that, I will turn it over to Nan. While Nan is giving her report, I would ask that if there are representatives from different elected officials, if you would just put your name and information in the chat so we can make sure we don't lose you, because I don't always have the ability to go through the 4 pages of screens that we have, or at least on my screen. So it would be helpful if you identify yourself in the chat. We wouldn't miss you and we can call you for your opportunity to speak. So Nan, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, talk about being taken by surprise. I usually do expect to go later, but in terms of some events that are happening in the office, for those who are following education, we are having an interactive virtual grant writing workshop where you will learn who funds nonprofits and what are their motivations and what do funders really want to know about organizations. This important meeting is being done by the PTA leadership training that we do in Borough Hall with ptalink.org. If you wish to participate, it is April 15th, that is tomorrow, from 6 to 8 p.m. It will be via Zoom. Please go to our website, brooklyn-usa.org, for this and the other announcements I'm about to make. Also, we are going to have our financial literacy workshop and panel discussion. As you know, April is Financial Literacy Month, and we usually do some type of training, forum, event. We have a series of events taking place each Thursday, starting tomorrow and subsequently until April 29th. The first event will be Spending Money, Wants versus Needs. The next event will be Managing and Keeping a Budget. And the final event, taking place on April 29th, Thursday, of course, what does financial literacy really mean? Each event, the first two events will take place at 4:30 p.m. and the last event will take place at 6 p.m. Once again, go to our website to get the details. And also, finally, we have a virtual career transition fair that is taking place April 16th at 12 p.m. for civil service, April 23rd at 12 p.m. for trades, and April 30th for healthcare and vocations at 12 p.m. We are doing this in conjunction with High School for Youth and Community Development and a High School for Service and Learning at Erasmus Hall High School. So we hope that you will be able to join us, as well as other events that are taking place in Borough Hall. And just a little nod to Taya's report about how there are over 100 applications received in Brooklyn Borough Hall. That is correct. And that is over 100, and that includes the reappointment applications that have been received. So Community Board 2 is indeed a popular community board, as you all already know. So we are still in the process of reviewing applications, and we have a few vacancies. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can call me at the office at 718-802-3863. The messages are sent to me via email. The voice messages are sent to me automatically. So you can leave your messages there. And then, of course, I left in the chat, even though the message was for another board member, you'll see my telephone number directly, which is 917-743-5529. I thank you. I'm not sure whether we're going to have a general board meeting before it happens, but just in case we don't, or whatever it happens, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Nan. Next, I'm gonna do this a little bit in order of how it was laid out in the chat. I'm gonna call GMayhew from Senator Kavanagh's office.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see me too? Okay.
No, we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, then whatever.
Now we can see you.
Okay, now you can see me? Okay, great. Hello, everyone. This is GMayhew again from Senator Kavanaugh's office. I want to thank you all for inviting us to join again. I just wanted to provide a few updates from our office. Last week, the state budget was passed and it was signed by the governor. There was a few things the senator would like to have highlighted. One of them is that the COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Program was also included in the bill, which is similar to the past COVID rent relief program, which is meant to pay for rent and utility arrears of tenants who have experienced financial hardships during the pandemic, with a total of $2.4 billion. Also there in the bill was also capital funding for public housing, which had $200 million for NYCHA capital repairs and renovations. Also, there was a mortgage forbearance, which extended the period to now it is until like December 31st, 2021, so the end of the year, or when the expiration of COVID emergency orders are implemented. Additionally, in the bill, which is interested for CB2, is that $185,000 was allocated to the Trust for Governors Island to expand ferry service to Brooklyn. And I know that's a key thing for you guys. The senator also joined 58 Democratic Senate and Assembly colleagues in calling for the resignation of Governor Cuomo. In the meantime, we all know that the Attorney General is conducting an investigation, and we are monitoring that as well. Additionally, there has been a lot of conversation about York Street Station. We just wanted to let everyone know that I believe like last week or the week before, we, along with Councilmember Levin and Assemblymember Joanne Simon, sent a letter to MTA to request for the feasibility study for the second entrance to be released as soon as possible, and details about the study to be disclosed. And we understand that this issue in regards to having a second entrance at the York Street Station is vital, and we've been asking for a very long time, and the Senator is very aware of that. And I think that is all for my updates today. Thank you.
Thank you, Greer. Appreciate you providing those robust updates. Thank you. Next, I'm going to call on ECerna from the Mayor's Office.
Hello, everyone, and Chair. Hold on, let me turn on.
You're on mute.
I think we're back. So I think you touched upon it, Chair, about the vaccines and some of the developments that we've had as of late. Last week, the city hit a really tremendous milestone. We vaccinated over 550,000 people. Again, that's last week alone, and we have surpassed the 5 million vaccinations done. The city is on track to hit its goal of having 5 million fully vaccinated New Yorkers by June. And so, we're sort of moving in the right direction. However, with the stop of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, we're sort of hitting a hiccup. But the city is asking the federal government to increase the doses of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines so that we can fill that sort of hole that the lack of the J&J vaccine is going to, impact us. To talk about some of those impacts, the J&J vaccine, the city was using mostly for the homebound program, which was designed for folks that are homebound, such as seniors who have mobility issues, and it was being used at houses of worship. But as of right now, the homebound program is suspended through Sunday, and the city, again, is currently working with folks to reschedule appointments and to arrange transportation for those that are homebound. But, with the bad news, we have to keep in mind that these vaccines are saving lives. And Dr. Chofsky spoke about this morning, that we have seen 61% of our seniors have received at least one dose of the vaccine, and we're starting to see hospitalizations drop as a result. So again, we are moving in the right direction. As always, you can call 877-VAX4NYC or check nyc.gov/vaccine finder for any available appointments. Quickly, I'll just talk about another announcement that was made today, that our community care plan, which is a 5-year plan that the city announced today. Its first phase is being sort of spearheaded by a $50 million investment in senior services. This plan is part of the Recovery for All. It's part of bringing back New York City. And this initial investment will lay the foundation work to expand upon the current network of services and resources that are for older adults. This initial investment will add 25 senior center or naturally occurring retirement communities, NORCs, in underserved communities with large growing aging populations. So again, there's more details. I'm happy to share some of that information. I'm sure it's online, but I think I'll leave it at that. As always, you can reach me at ecerna@cityhall.nyc.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Just for a moment, Suzanne Quint, do I see you with your hand raised?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure.
I have a question for Greer from Senator Kavanagh's office, if that's okay.
Sure, I just happened to flip through the screens and I saw your hand, so go ahead. Absolutely.
I'm
Hi,
here.
Greer. With regards to the Governor's Island Ferry and additional funding for the state budget,
Mhm.
is that what we've read about in terms of there being a second, getting feedback, a second location that folks can take the ferry from
on weekends from Brooklyn?
I-
Or is there something else in the works?
So
I
I
always
am
like
not,
to remind that with Governor's Island, we have, I think it's an equal number of folks who come from Brooklyn as to Manhattan to Governor's Island each summer. But Manhattan has daily direct ferry service, and Brooklyn only has weekend service.
okay, yeah. I will get a little bit more information on what exactly it outlined, but I know that was like the vague outline. But I can give you that information once I get it. And I can actually circulate it with the board as well, if you're interested.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on my list is Michael Stinson from the Comptroller Stringer's office.
Thank you. I hope everyone is having a great April so far. Just one quick update from our office. We're working with CUNY again for a fellowship in our office. We did it in the fall into the spring, and it's been a great success. So we're going to do it again for the summertime. It's designed for recent college graduates to get hands-on experience, professional training, and educational programming. The positions will include positions in the following bureaus of our office: audit, public policy, press, diversity, asset management, accountancy, engineering, law and adjustment, general counsel's office, and contract administration. The program term will be 4 days a week, 28 hours at a rate of $21 an hour. The fellowship date the dates will run from June 7th, 2021 to November 19th, 2021. And we're actually having an informational session tomorrow from 2 to 3:30 for anybody that's interested in learning more about it. Again, this is for recent CUNY grads. So if you know anyone that recently graduated from CUNY, we'd love for them to apply to this, and hopefully they can join our office this summer. And that's it. I'll leave it quick and easy.
Michael, if you have any follow-up information or any links, if you could send it to the office.
I'll drop it in the chat. Unfortunately, because of blackout rules, I can't share a flyer with everybody, but I'll drop the link to the Eventbrite.
Yeah, sure. Whatever information you have is great. We'll help to disseminate that and get that out to the community.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure. Next I have on the list is our dear friend, Mr. JWatkins from the District Attorney's Office.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me, Lynn?
Yes.
Great. Good evening. Yes, I'm JWatkins from Brooklyn DA's office. I'll just keep it brief. I apologize for background noise. People next door usually do this in the office. But first of all, the DA wants the community to know that in light of the recent developments over the past couple of months regarding Asian hate crime attacks, that he and his office, along with our partners in the NYPD, as well as other law enforcement agencies in the area, are definitely on point addressing these issues. Our office has a hate crimes task force and a hate crimes hotline, and there are dedicated ADAs specifically devoted to dealing with these hate crimes, and for all persons in all communities, but especially most recently in regards to the hate crimes that have been occurring against our Asian community residents. So please be aware of that this is something that is ongoing and is foremost on the DA's agenda. After having said that, over the past month, we've had a recent number of events, most in particular our Women's History event. And I believe on our website, which is brooklynda.org, we still have the actual video of the amazing Women's History event that the DA's office presented last month. So I would encourage those who have an interest to visit the website and to have a look at that video. As long as it's posted, I think they'll have it up for a while. Moving forward into the warm spring and summer months, the DA and his ADAs are definitely focused on addressing crimes that are such as shootings that have been going on in various areas of the borough. These are very distressing, but please know that these assaults and these shootings are being researched in terms of prosecuted, and you should go onto our website to find out about specific prosecutions that have been fulfilled. And each week there are at least one or two press releases announcing the various prosecutions that have completed in terms of persons who have committed crimes and what the results of that have been in terms of people being unfortunately and fortunately sentenced. The DA wants to keep the community safe and is doing all that he can to make that happen. That's all that I have for right now, but if anyone has any questions for me, you can reach out to me on my cell phone number, which is 718-250-2785, and I'll follow up with you as soon as I can. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
Thank you, John.
Before you leave, does the DA have any position on this movement to defund the police?
I cannot say specifically, speaking for the DA on that. I do know that all issues pertaining to police activities, as well as police funding in New York City in particular, are definitely on a high alert in terms of what the DA and his staff are, what positions they're taking on that. But I don't dare to speak for the DA in terms of what his own opinions are on that. He has not, to my recollection, released anything publicly on that, but I believe that something probably will be forthcoming on that.
Thank you so much, John.
You're welcome.
Again, thank you, John. Appreciate the update. I do not see any other dignitaries representing elected officials on the call, in the chat, but I do want to acknowledge, I believe the newly elected district leader for the 52nd is on our call this evening, and Jessie Pierce. So she doesn't have anything she wanted to say, but I just wanted to acknowledge that she is on the call. We wanted to say welcome, and going forward, if you do have anything that you want to share, you want to update, please just let us know. We're happy to partner with you, and this would be the opportunity where you get to have everyone hear your voice. So thank you and welcome, and congratulations. All right, so now we're moving on to item number 7, committees for action. First committee up is Health, Environment, and Social Services.
Well, lucky me. Good evening, everybody. I'm Brandon Smith. I'm the chair of the Health, Environment, and Social Services Committee. As Chair Singletary mentioned earlier, introducing our other parties, we do not have a person with the title of co-chair on the Health, Environment, and Social Services Committee. However, our secretary, Jessica Thurston, who is also secretary of the board, is my functional co-chair and is all that I could ever hope for in that regard. So I greatly appreciate her help. Moving on to our action items. Before I get there, I just want to point out, you've mentioned at previous meetings that every meeting we have a COVID-19 update. You should feel free to come to our meetings first Wednesday of the month. First agenda item is always the COVID-19 update. This past month, we had an uptick in new cases in the week prior to the meeting in Brooklyn Heights, and a very continuing low vaccination rate in Clinton Hill. And both are items that we want to pay attention to as we keep monitoring this in the community. We also watched a video on the impact of systemic racism on premature births among African American women, and had a very vibrant committee discussion, which is going to influence several of our forthcoming initiatives, about how stress caused by racism, but caused by experiencing a lifetime of racism, can influence health outcomes, which is a very interesting factor that we really feel deserves significant attention. And I want to encourage anybody to check out the YouTube, because for anyone who is interested in some of the great aspects of Webex, we have proved you can successfully show a movie using this platform, and it worked very, very well at our meeting. So encourage you to check out the YouTube in that regard. Now to our action items, the liquor licenses. I want to go through 5 of them. We did have some community concerns that were expressed throughout these items. We did support all 5 of these items ultimately, but I'll go through them each in detail. The first item was 22 Old Fulton Street. This is a location that's going to be known as Umami Dumbo. This is going to be kind of a ramen restaurant that is going to have background music inside. It's going to be open until midnight. There's some outdoor seating that they're getting as part of the open streets plan, which the outdoor seating is going to be closing at 10 p.m. We had a pretty good discussion as the committee with the community. There's music's going to be at background levels, and I think the community, particularly the Fulton Ferry Association, there were a couple folks there from the Fulton Ferry Association who they said that they welcome the restaurant to the neighborhood, and their primary concern was the outdoor seating, and we take that seriously. But at the same time, we kind of discussed that at the committee there's a number of in the local community there in Fulton Ferry, there are a number of other restaurants on the same block with outdoor seating that kind of goes with the same hours. The indoor hours are interestingly a little bit later than some of the hours on the block, and we had a discussion with the applicant about that. The indoor hours, it's 12 midnight Sunday to Thursday, it was going to be a 2 a.m. close on Friday and Saturday. We got the applicant to knock that down to a 1 a.m. close on Friday and Saturday. So with that concession and considering the community's concerns, ultimately the committee voted in favor of the first application 7-0-1. Now, the one abstention is we have one committee member who's having trouble with connecting to Webex, so he wasn't able to vote on that and a few other applications you'll see. The second application was for 1 Water Street. This is a location called Fireboat LLC. Now, those of you who know the Fulton Ferry area, you know of where the Brooklyn Ice Cream Factory building is, and then there's that pier that goes out into the ferry area. And on the course of that pier, there was there's a restaurant that's entirely outdoor seating, which we had approved at our committee last year by a unanimous margin. And because of the pandemic, the applicant wasn't able to open his business. The only condition that we had approved it at the last meeting was that the closing time was 12:30, and we had requested a stipulation from the applicant that the closing time be 12 a.m. Every night. And going into this new version of it's going to be exactly the same. The same 2 community members from the other application, from the Fulton Ferry Association, expressed some concerns about foot traffic that was going on the course of the pier, which is partially having the restaurant there, but it's also having all of these different barges and ferries that are docking on the course of that pier. Having people line up and congregating there on that ferry platform. So we had another pretty long discussion about that. The applicant had several hundred signatures of support, which he mentioned he had. We didn't see the signatures. Ultimately, in the midst of the community expressing the concerns, it was noted by the Fulton Ferry Association in the chat that they did support the applicant's application. They just wanted to make sure that he stood with the 12 a.m. closing time that had been agreed to last year. So we discussed that with the applicant. Once that was all agreed, it was a vote of 7-0-1 in favor of that application. Our third application involves 737 Fulton Street. This is located on Fulton Street, and cross streets are South Portland Avenue, South Elliott Place, and it's kind of a commercial corridor kind of area. This specific location is an eclectic food restaurant. There's going to be background music. The indoor hours are 12 midnight close every day. The outdoors is a backyard, which includes an 11 p.m. close. Now, there were no residents here to express any concerns about this one, but we did understand from the applicant that they have that they had signatures of support from the upstairs neighbors. They were able to get 2 of the upstairs neighbors. They didn't get all of the upstairs neighbors. Upon considering that, the committee voted to support that application by a margin of 6-1-1. The fourth application was 753 Fulton Street. This is going to be a pizza restaurant. It's located on the same block as the one I just did, and is actually the same owner. The 753 Fulton Street is taking over a location that was the I want to say it's a Green Grape Annex. I think that's what it was. I think that's what it was. Thank you. And it's going to be open until 12 midnight every day. There is no outdoor seating at this location. And again, being on a commercial corridor, it's got the same kind of residential situation where there are upstairs neighbors, and but yet it's on sort of a commercial street. And in this case, the upstairs neighbors didn't know about the application before they saw the posting. So they came to the committee meeting and they were concerned about having the restaurant open until 12 midnight. So we had a long committee discussion, hearing the residents' concerns, and upon listening to them, it seemed like much of the concerns were about, in some instances, other restaurants and past experiences in the neighborhood. And when we spoke with the applicant agreed to make sure that the noise was kept to a very strict minimum, that in late night hours that members of the restaurant staff were not playing loud noise. And he had mentioned he had actually posted his cell phone number at the location. Now, because of the board COVID-19 status, there was no signatures of support that were able to be gained for this application. But because we're not doing that in the midst of the pandemic, but in speaking with this applicant, it became clear that he was very concerned about making sure that he was a good neighbor. And we'd had prior experience as a committee with the same applicant working in a different business where there had been similar sort of community concerns expressed before the business opened. And then after the business opened, the applicant had worked with the community, and all of the concerns had completely gone away, and there had been a very harmonious relationship fostered there. So having had that prior experience, it gave us an element of comfort with this this applicant, and knowing it was a commercial corridor and there was no outdoor seating, as well as the fact that there seemed to be a commitment to take the residents' concerns into effect and meet with them and work with them. At the end of this, we voted in favor of supporting this application by a margin of 4-1-1. The level of committee conversations was taking quite some time. It got to be a late hour, so some committee members had to leave at that point. Finally, our last application, 71 Pineapple Street, the Vineapple Cafe. This is another interesting situation, which was very limited in scope as to what was being proposed. There is a backyard in this particular cafe that was very concerning to neighbors many years ago. At last year's meeting, it was our last meeting before the pandemic, we had approved this application with a 7 p.m. close for the backyard. And there was one community member who had expressed concerns about it. There were no community members who showed up on this particular application for this meeting. And the application is solely to extend the backyard closing hours from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m., which thinking about it as a committee, we felt was a very reasonable request and not a very late hour. We had asked if there were any incidents that had occurred since the place had opened about a year ago. The applicant self-disclosed there was an incident in August of 2020 approximately, where I guess a resident had called the police because there was staff who were talking loudly in the backyard. And after the police responded, the incident dissipated according to the applicant, and there were no further incidents since that point. Having heard all of these facts, considering the implications of them and the limited scope of what was being proposed, the committee voted unanimously 6-0-0 in favor of this application. That concludes everything. Sorry, I was a bit loquacious about this, but I hope I've answered any questions you might have. Happy to take more.
Loquacious is fine when you're providing good information, so don't worry about it. So before we get into the opportunity to maybe discuss some of these items, is there a sense from any board members that you would like to pull out any of these items, or is there a sense to do this in the totality that it was presented?
Very thorough. So totality, I move to approve all of them. John, do.
Mr. Singletary, I have a problem with the last one. Okay, the Vineapple Cafe.
You got to hold on for a minute because I got a motion on the floor.
I know.
Yeah. Can I get a second?
We'll approve it all.
Can I get a second on the motion to, and so we're clear, the motion is just to move forward with approving all of the items at once. Can I get a second, Mr. Howell?
So moved, so seconded.
Mr. Howell, thanks. Any discussion on the motion? Bill, here's your chance.
Yes, I'm jumping in. Okay, Mr. Chair, I have a problem with the last item. I would probably vote against that, and unfortunately would vote for the other four, so I have a problem with that.
And I'd like to raise something on Old Fulton, on the ramen shop.
All right, so we're going to proceed with the motion. And those who have heard from our colleagues, take that under consideration. So let me do it this way. All in favor, I got to, Jessica Tail, give me a second, let me close my screen. I need to capture everyone. So I need everybody to work with me. All board members who have the benefits and duly noted to vote. If you're in favor of the recommendation in the motion to accept and present all of the items that were listed as one item, raise your hand. Let's see, so 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Ms. Gelman, you're raising your hand, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. Yeah, keep your eyes on the road. I got you. I'm just multitasking. I got it.
Keep my video down. Thanks.
All right, that's okay. So, Jessica, by my count, I see a vast majority. Is that correct?
That is what I also see.
Okay, great. Those who oppose, please raise your hand. See 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3.
Keep your hands up, y'all.
3, 4, 4. I only see 4.
I think I see 1, 2. Suzanne,
I see
you're
5
opposed,
now. I see
correct?
Barbara. I miss Barbara. So I see 5.
Yeah, I'm frozen, so,
Yeah, I got you already.
okay. I'm exiting and entering.
That's all right. I caught you just as you were exiting. I see 5. Is that what you have, Jessica?
2, 3. I did have 5. It's tough when it's like bouncing around. Yeah, I had 5.
Okay.
So it
And
passes.
is there anyone who abstains? I see 1 abstention. 1, 1, 1. Bear with me, everybody. Keep your hand up 1 second. Let me go through my screen. I see 1.
2.
Jessica, how many do you count? I see 1.
I only see 2.
2.
Who am I missing? I see Mr. Lastawicki. Who else am I missing?
Somebody on the right below you.
Again?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? I apologize.
Well, did you ask, my
The question is-
connection just went out. Were you asking for those who were against to vote?
Abstaining.
Abstaining. I already did against.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I was doing abstentions.
I just saw 1.
Okay, so it carries, right? So now with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation as presented. Ms. Gels, second, Ms. Freibush. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Looks like a majority. We don't need to do a roll call or anything for this vote.
I voted it all.
Mr. Singletary? Look, I believe we may have lost Mr. Singletary's signal.
There he is.
I think we lost him.
No, I'm here. Can you see me? I can see you.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah. I can see all of you. You couldn't see me?
Just for a second. We're good.
Okay. So Jessica, what do you come away with? I come away with the majority.
Yeah, a majority.
Okay. All right. Brandon, thank you. What I would ask though is for those board members who had concerns with some of the items that were presented, not to lose your thoughts, because while I know we're going to do this in a democratic process, you may have a material point. If you would just email that into the board office so it can be captured, because if it's something material, we can consider it, but the vote is the vote. Okay? Thank you. I appreciate that. Next committee to report, land use.
Okay, everybody, thank you. Just to let the health people know, I got both vaccines, so hopefully I'm in decent shape.
Your balloons are in the mail.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, yes. And in addition, I noticed from Taya's report that there are about twice as many people making inquiries about real estate on our board as is for people with the FLA. So I guess more people would rather know about property than getting a good drink, but you know, we'll go with what we have. Okay, our one item is 208 Dean Street, which is in the Bourne Hill Historic District. It's between Bond and Nevin Streets. And the application is to construct a full width, full width rear yard extension, and the yard at the garden and parlor floors, with a smaller extension on the second floor. The facade will be brick with a full width extension and a stucco, and the stucco rather be a smaller extension. We liked what we saw in this one. The plan is to bring out the rear a little bit more. The applicant has assured us that the next door neighbors on either side have been notified, that they know that this work will be done, although it didn't seem to be particularly, I would say, onerous or cumbersome upon the next door neighbors. The work was decent, and our committee approved it 12-0-0. And as a result, we ask for your approval.
Thank you, Carlton. I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation.
So moved.
So moved.
Jessica, do you have those who moved the second?
I heard a couple.
So let's go with a motion from Mr. Du, a second from Ms. Ali.
Great.
All right, great. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I have a question.
Sure.
Why did this need landmark approval if it's for the backyard?
It's a little bit going, affecting a couple of people by it, and there's a little bit of work also at the front, I think, as well. But basically, we just do, when Landmark asks us to do it, we'll take a look at it.
But what are they doing on the front that needs landmark approval?
Just a little bit of facade work, brickwork.
If I could interject again, this community board a decade or more ago approved that Landmark should deal with applications that do not allow the public to see it. There is no rationale for having the community board assess something that the community cannot see. That should be Landmarks. We actually spend a lot of time going over areas that the public cannot see. This is starting up all over again. We had discontinued this practice for a long time. It is starting back up again, and it's wasting a lot of time for something the public cannot
see. I have a different technical question. In general, Landmarks does not have authority on stuff in the backyards. This is the donut hole issue that's come up before, and I'm just curious why in this particular case, as opposed to many other ones, which I can point out to you, in the Landmark area, all right, I'm curious as to why this, I'm happy that they brought it forward. I'm just curious for the technical reason why this when all the other backyards in the Landmark area don't have to come before the board. Does anybody know?
So let me ask this question before you do that, Carlton.
Yeah.
As the chair of the committee, do you definitively have an answer as to know why?
I don't have any definitive answer. They've asked us to do it, and we did it.
Okay, so that's the answer. So, Sid, we don't have an answer to your question. We can follow up, and we can engage with Landmarks to get some greater clarity, but we don't have an answer. So I don't want to waste time trying to speculate to his. No, not you, Sidney, not you. I'm just saying in general. If we don't have a solid answer, let's just say that. But I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that. Go ahead, Sid.
I think Daughtry wants to contribute as well.
Hold on. Let me let Sid say his point, and then we'll come to Daughtry.
No, my point is, I'm just curious why this night, since there are lots of these going on in the neighborhood, in the Landmark area, where we don't get any notice at all. The backyard just gets approved by the buildings department.
Yeah, it is a bit inconsistent, but Daughtry?
I just wanted to share that I think if you go to the landmarks text, they say very clearly that any project that affects the exterior envelope of a building in the district, a historic district, even if parts of the building are not visible from the street, have to be reviewed by landmarks. And then I believe further that landmarks determines whether it needs to get can stay at staff approval, which means we don't see it, or if they think it's warranted that the community board take a look.
Thank you, George.
Yes, that is correct. We don't, there's many items that we never get at all because of the staff approval. This one was one, the staff decided that it should be referred to the community board.
Thank you, thank you. Doreen, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'm on the Public Review Committee for the Historic Districts Council, and we see everything that goes through the city, and we always weigh in on things, all backyard. Some of them you see from the street, some of them you can't. So I could appreciate John's frustration, but preservation is getting such a heavy hit that I think that if we're asked to look at something and public review is an important piece of approval process. That's all, but it happens all the time.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that. Any other discussion on the motion? Here, Mr. Gallo, Mr. Cyril Scalo, Mr. Scalo?
Yeah, I just had a question for Carlton. You said that the applicant must submit letters from their neighbor. Do you get an actual letter from the neighbor, or do you take the applicant's word for it? I think you're muted, Carlton.
Carlton, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, we've been taking the word of the applicant that they have made efforts to contact the neighbors. We want the applicants to try to see if they can actually meet with the neighbors to say, hey, this is coming down the track and you should know about it. And we try to make sure that the neighbors do get some idea as to what may affect their the next door properties, especially because these are, all of these properties are very close together, as most of these landmark district ones are. They're tight, and we want to make sure that they don't knock out or affect the next door neighbors.
All right, thank you. So listen, let me move this along. I need to call this to a vote. So all in favor of the committee's recommendation? I need you to raise your hands, keep them up so we can, I got John for an aye, but everybody just keep your hands
Aye.
appropriate count. I got you too, Irene. So I have 2 ayes and everybody's hand is up. That's great. Jessica, we got a count?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, great. Anyone opposed? Okay, any abstentions? Okay, great. The committee's recommendation passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So just before we get to the next item.
Hello.
Hold on, Mr. Majority Leader. Hold on for me 1 second.
Okay, Lenny, I was muted. You were
Yeah, I know,
muting
you're
me.
fine.
You're not supposed to mute a senator. Ho, ho, ho.
Well, we thought you were talking to somebody to bring more money to New York, so we don't want anybody to hear that.
Oh, yeah, I'm always doing that. Thanks. Go ahead, Lenny. Do what you got to do.
I'm sorry. I thought I had one question. I saw someone had a question. Did I miss someone with a question? Okay, great. So let me just amend our agenda for a minute. Our next item would be committee civil report, but we have the hardest working majority leader from the Borough of Brooklyn. I got to tell you, I've been on probably 4 different calls with the majority leader Schumer, and this is the first time I've seen him with his tie away from his neck. So he's really working hard for all of Brooklyn. We appreciate
Not only that, Lenny, I have a glass of wine. First.
I'm sure it's well deserved. And so with that, I want to ask everyone if you would welcome. We're going to set aside some time for our special guest this evening. Majority Leader Charles Schumer.
Here, here.
Schumer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lenny, and it's great to be here with everybody, and I thank you. First, I want to thank Lenny. Thank you for the applause, folks, but this guy deserves the applause. What an amazing leader he is of your great community board, too. And let me thank all of you for serving on the community board. It's so important. You know, I'm a community person. I started out a long time ago as a tenant organizer, and then as a local assemblyman and congressman. I know how important our community boards are. And I want to thank all our members of the board. You know, I know how it is. When things go wrong, you hear it from everybody. When things go right, no one says thank you. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for your service to helping a great part of Brooklyn. And I love Brooklyn. I'm the first senator from Brooklyn, 180 years, first majority leader from New York ever. But guess why I particularly care about community board too? I have given you my young ones. Both my daughters live in your board. My older daughter, her husband, and my 2-year-old grandson, Noah, live there. And my other daughter and her wife live there. So I very much appreciate community board too. I ride my bicycle all over your board all the time. I'm not a spandex guy. I don't go at 40 miles an hour. I stop and I talk to people and all that. So you've got a great board, and I thank you for that very much. And I hope everyone here is healthy, their loved ones are safe, your family is safe. And first, what I want to do is tell you a little bit about my January 6th. I'll get into what I want to talk to you about is all the things in this ARP that are available to the members of your community, and then try to leave some time for questions, if that's okay, Lenny. Do we have about a half hour or not? Is that too much?
For you, we'll make a half an hour. It's fine.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it very much.
No problem.
Okay, so first, my experience, I'll tell you, on January 6th, because it explains where we're at here. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. That's the opening line in Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, but that's how January 6th was for me. January 5th, as you may remember, was our elections in Georgia. If the 2 Democratic senators won, we would take back the Senate away from Mitch McConnell and try to be able to get things done. Well, it was a close election, and I was on tenterhooks all day, stayed up all night watching the results. Tuesday night bled into Wednesday morning. And finally, I'm on the computer at 2 a.m. What's the results in Chatham County? How many African-American citizens have voted in DeKalb County? Finally, at 4 a.m., we learned the 2 winners. The first African-American, a pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, Raphael Warnock, to become senator, and the first Jewish person to become senator. So Georgia's changing, because when both of these folks were born, there were 2 arch-bigoted, racist segregationists who were the senators from Georgia. Well, anyway, as soon as I learned at 4 a.m. that we had won, what was my first reaction? Just joy. I'm sure most of you have experienced this. When you set an important goal in your life, it could be personal, it could be family, it could be professional, and it takes a long time to get there, and there are logs in the path and detours. And you finally get there, wow, joy. But pretty soon thereafter, very quickly, a second emotion pulsed through my veins. And it's hard to describe, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe it. And the word I use to describe it is awe, A-W-E. Not the way my daughters, when they were teenagers, used to use the word awe. Gee, Dad, that movie was awesome. But rather awe in the biblical sense. When the angels saw the face of God, they trembled in awe. And I realized the tremendous responsibility on my shoulders and the shoulders of our Democratic majority, thin though it was. First, substantive, to get us out of this COVID mess. Start dealing with the problems that we had neglected for so long: climate, economic inequality, racial inequality, democracy, improving our democracy. So much to do substantively. And the second thing I felt on my shoulders was a political obligation. Now we Democrats had power for the first time in a long time. Democratic president, Democratic House, and Democratic Senate. We had a political responsibility to show the people that we could make a difference. You know, so many people are cynical. Doesn't make a damn bit of difference, they say, if Democrats or Republicans are in power. Now we had the chance to show them. And the third responsibility was almost a moral responsibility. You may have asked yourself this question, which I've asked myself. How could so many people vote for such a scoundrel as Donald Trump? In 2016, okay, maybe some people didn't like Hillary. They said, let's try something new. But by 2020, everyone knew that this man was a lying, egotistical, selfish, racist, bigoted, divisive maniac. Why'd they vote for him? And I realized, I thought about it, and why they voted for him, because they lost hope in the American dream. If you ask the average American citizen, what does the American dream mean to you? It means if I work hard, I'll be doing better 10 years from now than I'm doing today, and my kids will be doing still better than me. And if you don't believe that anymore, if you don't have that sunny American optimism that has usually been with us, you can turn to a demagogue, a autocratic man like Trump. And I realized if we didn't give people hope that their lives would improve, they don't expect us to just snap our fingers and everything gets better, but they expect us to make a path and show them we can improve things for them, not for the wealthy, but for the poor and middle-class people who are struggling. And we could prevent a Donald Trump from coming back in 2024, or someone maybe even worse than him. So I felt all those the awe, the responsibility, and the joy coursing through my veins. I couldn't sleep. Got up at 7 in the morning and got in the car, drove to DC, got on the floor of the Senate at 1 p.m. First time as majority leader on the floor of the Senate. And I wasn't on the Senate floor for about an hour. Hadn't even given my first speech as majority leader, or putative majority leader, when a police officer with a bulletproof vest and a machine gun strapped across his waist grabs me firmly by the collar. Lenny, I will never forget that grip as long as I live. And he says, Senator, you're in danger. We got to get out of here. I hadn't known what happened up to then. He told me. We rushed off the floor of the Senate, and you may have seen this because those overhead cameras put this on tape, and they used it in the impeachment trial and showed it on TV. We made a turn to the right. We're walking briskly. We go through a door, then you don't see us, and 15 seconds later, we're running out the door at full speed. I was within 15 feet of these insurrectionist bastards. I'll use that word, I'm sorry. Had one of them had a gun, had two of them blocked off the door, I might not be here talking to you today. And one of them said, there's the big Jew, let's get him. So that was the worst of times. Now we're getting back to the best of times. They've arrested about 300, 400 of those people in the building, and I have every confidence that Merrick Garland will try them and prosecute them. They're starting to go after the white supremacist organizations that helped to organize this. And the best of times, we are now getting things done for the American people. And that's what I want to talk about the rest of my little talk for you tonight. This ARP bill, the American Rescue Plan, that we passed, even though we only had 50 votes, is the most progressive, strongest piece of legislation for the poor and middle class that has happened in more than 50 years. Some of the obvious things, the checks, any person who makes below 75,000, any couple who makes below 150,000 gets a $1,400 check. McConnell didn't want to give any checks in December. We finally got him to do 600. I promised the people of America and New York, if I get to be majority leader, we'll get the full 2,000. We did. The vaccines, we started getting them distributed, produced, and out. So within 2 weeks now, there will be enough vaccines that anyone 16 years old can line up and just get a vaccine at any of the sites that are available. You don't have to make an appointment. You don't have to prove this, that, or the other. And we put particular emphasis on communities of color and poor communities, community health centers, federally qualified health centers, get the vaccines easy. And so we expect that by May 1st or so, in New York, most people do want to take the vaccine, that there'll be enough vaccines for everybody. And by June 1st, enough people will have the vaccine that we can begin to get back to life as normal. We've done a lot else as well, okay? We passed legislation that helps tenants pay the rent. People who lost their jobs, they can't pay the rent. We got them $2 billion, made sure, working with some of our progressive groups, that the money goes to the people, not to the government and not to the landlords. We got money to keep our restaurants open. A lot of our restaurants were struggling. 6 months, they're getting 6 months a grant. We got money to save our subways and MTA. They would have closed. Got them enough money that they kept open, and now they can resume their capital plan. We got money for our arts institutions, our Save Our Stages legislation, which I passed and put in there. And that meant that our stages, our movie theaters, Broadway, so many artists didn't have any money. They couldn't perform. They're going to survive. We got money so that the state and local governments are fully funded. Not only the state, but the city. No layoffs. And now they'll be able to resume services. I live by Prospect Park. I'm in your neighboring community board. They're starting to pick up the garbage out of Prospect Park again. For days they didn't, and it was a mess. And now that we gave the city $6 billion, the state over $14 billion, no layoffs, and they're going to resume the services that they need. Here's a very important one. We are helping get rid of poverty in America. We've virtually doubled the child tax credit, and we greatly increased the earned income tax credit. A child born into poverty doesn't get properly fed, doesn't get properly clothed, doesn't get properly educated, doesn't get proper health care. When they're 18, they're in a deep ditch. Now, some of them, to their everlasting credit, climb out, but many cannot. If we eliminate poverty, and now we've eliminated half of it, we are going to have, it's not only good for the kids and not only good for their families, but good for America. And here's what, listen to this, the Tax Policy Center, a progressive group. This is the difference between Democrats and Republicans. When the Republicans did their big bill, it was a tax break for the wealthiest people and the big fat corporations. The top 1% got 83% of the benefits of their bill. You know what the top 1% got in our bill that we just passed? Zero, nada. And the bottom 20%, the poorest people in America, will see a 20% rise in their income, according to the Tax Policy Center progressive group. That's huge. If you're having trouble feeding your family, if you're having trouble paying the rent and you get a 20% increase, that is a big deal. And those payments will continue for a year. Every family will get $250, every family whose individual income is below $75,000, if they're a couple, $150,000, will get $250 per child every month starting in July. We've extended unemployment benefits. We give $300 on top of the state benefit. It goes all the way through September. And we include all kinds of people who never got any unemployment before, part-time workers, gig workers, freelancers, self-employed people. Paid sick leave. Every employer who gives paid sick leave and paid family leave during COVID gets fully reimbursed. Housing. $2.1 billion I gave to the state, and then I worked with the progressive groups to make sure the money went to the tenants so that you won't be evicted from your home if you lost your job. You lose your home, you're cooked. And also money for food. We've increased SNAP, food supplement, by 15% and gave the food banks all the money they need. Small business. If you have small businesses or restaurants in your community board, we now put the smallest businesses and smallest restaurants at the top of the list, and they can get the PPP. And by the way, for those of you who remember churches, we've included them as well because they were going broke, and they do a lot of the social services in communities. We got money for childcare. We got money for broadband. Schools, your school district will get direct money. I don't give it to the state because the school district never sees it. And guess what they can use it for in addition to opening up the schools safely? We worked with the educators and the teachers and everybody else on this. Money for after school and summer school so the kids can make up the time when they were just learning virtually, particularly the younger kids. So we've done all these things and a lot more. Two more things that people don't know about. Any incarcerated people can get Pell Grants. Young men and young women are often put in prison, sometimes for very small crimes. You know, the marijuana laws are so outdated in the country. I'm trying to get marijuana legalized, but it's so outdated in the country. You have a small amount of marijuana, you get a huge criminal penalty. and then you can never make up for it. We allow prisoners to get Pell Grants so they can take technical courses, college courses, and make something of themselves. And funerals. I worked with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She represents Corona in Queens. She said, my people are dying and they can't bury their people. They don't have money for a funeral. They don't have money for a burial. And I used to see this. I would see loved ones. You ever see these pictures? Kids pressing their face against the thick glass of a hospital barrier and saying goodbye to grandma and grandpa, or even mom and dad. Can't kiss them, can't hug them, can't touch them. And then they can't even give them a decent burial. There is now $9,000 per burial for people who can't afford it. And I'm going to get you all this information, Lenny, and if you could please distribute it to everyone in the board, where to apply, because we've given the community development financial institutions and the minority development institutions money to have people who are being on a hotline, and you call them and they will help you. You know, the first round when Trump was there, a lot of the small business went to the big boys, the big chains, you know, the Red Lobsters or the Olive Gardens. Now it's going to the small businesses and small restaurants, and these CDFIs and MDIs will help them. They just got to call a phone number and someone will help them get the dollars, because they don't have a banker or an accountant. You know, they're a small restaurant. So that's that. One final thing. On our Democratic agenda, I have 4 or 5 things. One thing I'd like your help with, I'm trying to get Elizabeth Warren and I are trying to get $50,000 of student loans forgiven for every student. It's a huge problem. And by the way, if you're a parent who took your student loans, you get forgiven too. College should be a ladder up. For too many kids with these loans, it's an anchor down. Biden can do this on his own, and Warren and I are pushing him. And it's part of the wealth gap between black and white. 28% of the wealth gap. So many of the students who have these debts are poor and people of color. We get rid of those debts, they can spend that money on starting a life, starting a business, buying a car, whatever they want to do. So I need you, Lenny, I need everyone to let all their friends know on their Instagram and Facebook to send Biden an email or a letter or a call. We're trying to get 15 million signatures to forgive student debt. I'm also trying to legalize marijuana. But the 3 big items that we have coming up: first, climate. We have to deal with climate change. I ride my bike in the park, in the Brooklyn River Park. It's beautiful. It'll be gone if the rivers rise. And my grandson, who now plays in that little sprinkler park you have over there, he likes that. He's 2. That'll be gone. We must deal with climate change. Second, we got to deal with income and racial inequality. It has plagued our society. It's gotten much worse. The bottom 60, 70% of society is hurting. Got to do that. And part of the Biden bill is going to do that, but we got to make it stronger and better. And the third is democracy. We got to restore our democracy. Some of these Republican states are trying to take away the right to vote. We got to get rid of the dark money in politics. And S1 is a mission for me. We got to get that done. So we got a lot to do. We've done a lot, but we have a lot to do. And now I'd like to spend the rest of the time, Lenny, answering people's questions, but I will get you this information. I know people didn't have time to write all this stuff down, but I'll get you the information and spread the word. A lot of people don't know of all these benefits for them, and the money on the shelf does no good. We got to get it into people's hands, and particularly poorer people, middle class, and people of color. Thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader Schumer. We appreciate all the work that you're doing. You know, I'm not going to take too much time because I know many of my colleagues who are on the board have questions. Senator Schumer, what I would ask is, without having a chance
Lenny,
to
call me Chuck. Chuck, I'm still from Brooklyn. I'm not a fancy pants. Even though I'm majority leader, you should call me Chuck.
All right, Chuck. So here we go. I know you have a lot on your plate. What I'll ask you to do is, when we get to the point where we're at the too many questions, you can just tell us we have 2 more questions left.
Okay.
And then we'll wind it down.
I got
I'll open it up to my colleagues on the board. If anybody has any questions, if you could, it's kind of hard to see everyone on the screen, but if you would, just raise your hand and let us, Mr. Scala, if you just introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Good evening, Senator Schumer. I'm Cyril Scala. I'm a neighbor of yours. I live in Brooklyn Heights, and I may meet one of your children on the street sometime, or maybe on Clark Street Station or somewhere.
Yep.
It's good to see you this evening, and thank you for joining us. It's a pleasant surprise.
Thank you.
My question is the infrastructure bill that is heading that the government that President Biden has presented or
Yes.
working on with you guys. We are seriously interested in the Brooklyn Queens Expressway
Yeah.
information, and I would hope that within that bill we could get some. I know it's a state and a city issue because the highway is probably joint. But maybe the federal government can give us some help with that infrastructure.
Yes.
Because
Let me tell you this. I know about the problem a little bit. I take the BQE, you know.
I'd like your answer on that.
Yeah, no, I can be of real help here. This infrastructure bill, $2 trillion, which is for broad infrastructure, green infrastructure, is just what we need to do major, big, costly projects like your BQE problem. So here's what I need to know. I can help. First, I'm going to push through this bill. And as majority leader, I'm going to have a lot of say in where the money goes. So I'd be happy to help you get some of the money, a lot of the money that you need. But you got to figure out what you want to do with it. I don't dictate to communities it has to be this way or that way. If there can be a consensus in the community as how you want to fix it, I'll try to get you the dollars for it. Absolutely. And with a $2 trillion bill, a big project like this is not out of reach. And I'll have some say with the city and state as well, because they're very happy with me that I'm giving them money. Not me, you know, the federal government, but I have some say in that.
Betty,
but is there a consensus yet on what to do, Mr. Scaler?
There are a couple of one or two plans were presented to the community, and in general, the first plan that was presented from the DOT was pretty well rejected by the community. And we've had 3 wonderful meetings from very innovative architects who have offices within the community who have presented some very innovative and I would say climate responsible plans.
Yeah, good,
so,
good.
I don't know if you get that information. I would hope that maybe our local political people would be able to get that to you, but there are 2 very creative plans on the table.
Well, here's what I'd say, Lenny, yep. I don't want to interrupt, but I want to, if you come up with a consensus in the community, and of course the community board is the central focus for that, I will try to help you get funding. I'm not going to dictate to you what should be, and I certainly won't let the city or state shove a bad plan that the community doesn't like down its throat. But if there's a consensus, I will help you. Yes, definitely.
So I'll make sure that the community board, particularly the committee that has responsibility for that, will get that to you. We've spent a lot of time. We're not short on ideas, and we'll make sure we get that to you, and then we'll work together.
Thank you, Lenny. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Thank you, Lenny.
Excuse me, can I just interject something? There is a community coalition already formed and just waiting to be able to meet with people who could get you information also.
Okay, good. Get me the info, but again, we need a plan, not, you know, here's 3 plans. I don't want to pick for you. You got to pick for yourself, which is the right thing to do. I believe in community control, and then I'll help you get the funding.
Great, thank you. Betty Fibers?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, for your
Chuck.
Thank you so much. I'm asking what you can do in your position to get the 60 votes for background checks for all gun purchases, and this is the position of every town for gun sense in America.
Yes, I love every town I work with them. You may not know this, Ms. Feibush. I'm the author of the Brady Law, the background check law. I am very proud of the fact that the NRA, the National Rifle Association, puts me on the cover of their magazine every so often and says public enemy #1 and puts a bullseye on my forehead. And I actually get some of them in the mail where people shoot at that bullseye and send it to me. That's how crazy some of them are. But we have a bill called HR 8, universal background checks. I wrote the Brady Law in '94, but guess what? There were 2 big loopholes in that bill that we didn't know about. One was internet sales. Guess what? There was no internet in '94, so we didn't stop it. We didn't know to stop it. And second was these gun shows, which in those days were just used, you know, to show off your 1939 Derringer. And they became a huge place where the gun runners So now we have universal background checks. Right now, we are working on getting the 60 votes. And the public is for it. The Republicans are for it. 80% of the gun owners are for it, as you heard from every town. But you know, when the shootings occurred in El Paso and Las Vegas, those horrible shootings, the whole country was revolted, was horrified. Mitch McConnell said, we'll have a debate on this and I'll put a bill on the floor. Guess what? He never did it because his Republicans didn't want to vote for it. One of the big powers I have as majority leader is I can put on the floor, I have the power to determine what goes on the floor of the Senate. H.R. 8, the background check bill, which passed the House, that's Democratic control, will be on the floor. And we will force Republicans to vote for it. And if not, we're going to put our heads together and everything's on the table and we're going to figure out we have to get this done. And we will. And I'm working closely with every town on that. Every town's a big gun safety group.
Thank you.
Brendan Smith.
Thank you very much for your service, Chuck. And
thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you additionally for pushing President Biden on the student loan reform. That is very appreciated. My question is in regards to several of these amazing pieces of legislation that are sitting in the Senate, like the For the People Act, which you alluded to earlier, the S1, and the Equality Act, which is really a wonderful piece of legislation too. And generally, I guess maybe I should be just asking the question about filibuster reform and where you feel like we are on that, because as much as I think these are great pieces of legislation, you know, I feel like you got to have the numbers, and I'm wondering what you're feeling as where we're going with that.
Yes, and let me just say a thing about S1. That is, we must pass S1. Must. S1. S1 is to clear up our democracy. Here's what it does. It gets rid of the dark money from the Citizens United case. It gets rid of this horrible reapportionment where Republicans stem the legislature. It gets rid of corruption where politicians go work for lobbying firms and then make all this money and screw things up. But the most important thing it does, even though all these things are very important, it allows the Justice Department to prevent the obstruction from voting. When the Republicans lost, can I talk for a minute on this, Lenny? I'm sorry, but it's important. Okay, when the Republicans lost the election, instead of doing what you're supposed to do in a democracy, which is figure out why you lost and try to win over the voters you lost, they tried to take away the rights from people in voting. Here's some of the things they proposed. In Georgia, they first wanted to stop Sunday voting because our African-American community has souls to the polls. They go from the church to the early voting places on Sunday. That finally they backed off. But now you can't serve food or water to anyone waiting online. There are tons of old people waiting online, and you have to wait online in a poor Black community in the South because they have many fewer voting places than in the rich white suburbs. Okay. Here's what some other states did. You need a notary public to vote by absentee to come to your house. Do you know what? I'm a fairly worldly guy. I wouldn't know how to get a notary public to my house to vote, let alone a poor person who can't afford it, and many other bad things. S1 will allow the Justice Department to come in and undo these laws, undo them. And I made it S1. Why? That was my decision because it's the most important thing. So there are some of my colleagues on that. I'm all for the Equality Act. We have 49 votes for it right now, and we're getting Republican votes. My daughter, hey, I was the first major elected official of a party leader to come out for gay marriage. And then I learned it benefited me because my daughter married a beautiful young woman and lives, I shouldn't say her address, but lives in Brooklyn Heights. She has a rooftop. They got this great deal, and she has this rooftop apartment, and you can see everything. It's like Mary Poppins, you know? Remember they were dancing on the roof? I love going up there. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing. So we have a lot of bills to put on the floor, and we'll put them on the floor first and see if Republicans will vote for them. The gun bill, we may have a real chance to get them to vote for us. But if they block them, our caucus will get together. Everything will be on the table, and we will not fail. We cannot fail, and we won't. And I will make sure that that happens. I'll do everything I can to make it happen. And so far, So far, so good. I've been able to get all 50 of us to vote for the most important stuff. Is it easy with people like Manchin and Sinema, who right now don't want to change the filibuster? No. But when they see the Republicans blocking everything, I'll put those on the floor first. It's going to take a little time to convince them, but we have to get them done, have to get this done. All the bills you mentioned.
Bill Flournoy? Bill Flournoy?
Yes, thank you.
John.
Chuck, if I may call you that.
I like that, yes. I'm a
Okay, thank
Brooklyn guy, Mr. Flournoy. I'm a Brooklyn guy. I'm not a fancy pants.
I'm not a Brooklyn guy also. You've already addressed quite a few of the issues I was always concerned about, but currently right now, one of the things I'm looking at is income inequality, specifically with housing. Currently right now in our district, AMI, the area median income, it's not based on what people are earning in New York, but it's based on the surrounding areas, including Connecticut. The average median income for Brooklyn is around $46,000. But if you include the AMI, including Westchester and everything else, it pushes it up to 76,000.
Right.
Okay. With affordable housing, they're basing it on that AMI rather than the realistic AMI of the individuals who live in the area. How can we address that? Because it's on a federal level. Is there something you can do about that?
Yes, I believe we need much more affordable housing. One of the first things I want to do is get a big increase for public housing. That's one of the places. I love Biden's bill, but one of the places was disappointing. He only put 40 billion in for public housing. But second, we have to have much more affordable housing. And if you have the 76,000, we'll never be able to get the people who need help. So I am planned to work. We have a great new HUD secretary named Marcia Fudge. The only bad thing I can say about her is she's not from New York, but she's from Cleveland, Ohio. She knows all about housing, and I will work with her to try and change this, because you're 100% right.
Suzanne
Thank you,
Quinn?
sir.
Suzanne Quinn?
Yep. Hi, Chuck. Thank you for your leadership. We need your help with something in the district. I live in Dumbo,
Shoot.
and along with some of my colleagues here on the board and a whole lot of community members, we are trying to get safety improvements to the York Street subway station, which sits sort of.
Is this handicapped or is this safety?
It's both.
It's both.
It's both. Yeah, it sits at the intersection of Dumbo, Farragut Housing. It serves the Navy Yard. You know the increases.
I ride my bike through Dumbo, except on the cobblestone streets, quite often.
So that station is one of the most increased in usage. It has only one egress for that station. So it's a safety issue. It's inaccessible. We've been consistently, until recently, ignored by the MTA, told it's hard, it's too expensive. We sent a letter to your office recently, given the investment in infrastructure, and we would really love your help in getting the MTA to do what's right, because it's a safety concern.
I have a little say over them. I got them 15.6 billion, enough so they keep running, and some money for capital. But the big capital improvement bill will come in this Build Back Better, you know, the Biden bill. So I will work with you. The person you should, I have two people. One is my transportation person. His name is Rob Hickman. And the second is just a community liaison. His name is Steve Barton. And I will get to you how to reach Barton through Lenny, Suzanne. Okay?
Thank you very much.
We'll try to help you. I believe in handicapped access. I helped pass the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, when I was in Congress. There was a boy who lived across the hall from me, had cerebral palsy. And he was in a wheelchair. This is 1989. But he couldn't go outside around his block because there were no curb cuts. Something simple as curb cuts made him a prisoner. So I passed the ADA, and one of the things is they required curb cuts, but lots of other things, including access to the subways. So I'll work with you.
Thank you.
Doreen Gallo?
Thank you. Hi, Chuck. You have to call me Doreen. I had the pleasure.
Hi, Doreen.
I've had the pleasure of meeting you at.
Doreen, speak up a little for me, please.
Oh, sorry. I had the pleasure of meeting you when you spoke at a forum for Senator Squadron, State Senator Squadron at the time.
He worked for me for 6 years. Yeah.
I know. So this was after that. So I want to just piggyback on what Suzanne said, because the infrastructure issues and the ADA compliance issues are problematic because there's zoning is not planning. So although all the zoning happened 20 years ago, it's more than dangerous. But since you talked about that and we're going to get your help, I want to talk about another issue since you're familiar with Dumbo. I led landmarking and I led a loft law. So in our historic district, we also have rent stabilized tenants who would have been zoned out of the district because of it went from mixed use to upscale. And in the midst of that, all our historic resources, the heart of Dumbo is the Manhattan Bridge. And it doesn't matter what commissioners there, DOT is occupied under the bridge and it divides the neighborhood in half. And since Dumbo was zoned, the mixed use aspect of manufacturing and artists have been zoned out of Dumbo. However, DOT still occupies this, what should be, public space and public use. And, maybe some of their occupation could be in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. How do you help, could you help us?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this, Doreen. The New York City zoning laws are not my thing,
I guess maybe my real issue is historic preservation.
Yes, that I believe in, and we have a historic preservation tax credit, which is very helpful, which I helped pass. Could that help?
I think so. I think I'll reach out to your office. And
okay, good. Do that, Doreen. Hey, Lenny, we could take maybe one more. How's that? Two more.
I have two more. If you let me do two more, it'll be quick.
You know the song I could have danced all night? I enjoy this stuff. I love being with people. This is what, let me say this, Lenny. I am a mix. I always mix and mingle. I go to the Atlantic Antic. You probably see me there for hours on end. I love talking but I can't do it with this COVID. So I go on these Zooms. But listen to this. You'll like this. I was on Easter Sunday. I did more virtual services than I'm Jewish. Than all the Christians put together. Go ahead.
So
Two more.
Well, listen. You can always come with or without a glass of wine. So I'm going to end with two Johns. I'm going to start with John Dew. Then I'm going to go to John Harrison.
Okay.
So John Dew.
Senator, this is John Dew. You covered most of the items that I wanted to have addressed, but I do want you to know that in Community District 2, we have a block named Myrtle Avenue that is the greatest division of wealth and poverty in the city of New York as of a couple
I
of
ride
years
my
ago.
bike down it. I was in Fort Greene Park with my grandson this Saturday, so I was there.
That's a whole different discussion. However, the Fort Greene Public Housing Project, which you ride by because it's adjacent to the Fort Greene Public Housing Projects,
Yep,
they have the lowest family income amongst the lowest in the city of New York. The public housing, as you mentioned earlier, in the city of New York requires tens of billions of dollars to be brought up to a livable
We need
condition.
40 billion. We need 40 billion for New York, John.
So are you saying that that's in the pipeline? Can we go back and tell
no, the White House put in only 40 billion for the country. But if we get 70 billion for the country, since we have so much public housing need, we could get close to 40. And I'm working with Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez, Richie Torres, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to get it up to 70 billion.
Greatly appreciated.
John Harrison.
Thank you, Lenny. Good to see you, Chuck, outside the June parade where I'm always cheering you on as you're walking down Fifth Avenue.
Oh, you mean, yeah, I was the first senator to march in the Gay Pride Parade. Now I watch it. Now I'm very proud. I march with my daughter and her wife. It's great.
Correct. So from Health, Environment, and Social Services, I just want to say first off, thank you for making this time for us. Secondly, how excited I am of the cornucopia of things that you said the funding is going through. It's very exciting that your funding so that SNAP can increase. I'm very excited from a standpoint as the vice president of the 88th Precinct Council. They're working towards gun control because, of course, it's a big problem throughout the city with the gangs and the guns. But my question is not so much a question I have, but I wondered, Chuck, if you could expound or expand without taking up too much of anybody's time on your thoughts about the environment and working towards climate change, because of course it will negatively impact Community Board 2, but it's far-reaching throughout the city, right?
If we don't do something about climate change, John, the horror we saw with COVID, 10 years from now will be worse than that year after year and get worse and worse. So there is a moral imperative to deal with climate change. And we are working very hard. I introduced legislation that I think can pass called Clean Cars for America. The goal is to produce no internal combustion engine, get all clean cars by 2030 as production, and 2040, every car on the road will be clean. We're doing the same with housing. We're doing the same with power. We're doing the same with agriculture. We're doing the same with industry. It is one of my, one of the two sponsors of the Thrive Agenda, which takes the Green New Deal and puts it into practical effect. And that's what we're going to try to do in this Biden Build Back Better bill.
Chuck, thank you for taking the time. I don't have a question. All I do is have a reminder. Don't forget about safety net hospitals. We take care of the communities that you're fighting for. Keep up the great work. Have another glass of wine on me, and you always have an open invitation to come back to Community Board 2.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the good work
Chuck.
you all do. You're a great board. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was a pleasant surprise. I'm glad that Chuck could join us tonight. He's home. I want to go home. So let's jump back to the items on the agenda. We're up to
Mr. Chair.
Item number 8, committees to report. Let's start with economic development and employment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know how I can follow up with that, but I'm going to do the best I can. Okay. Anyway, at our committee meeting, we had the bids all show up and actually give us an update on the issues that are going on within the different bids throughout the district. We asked them for actionable problems and solutions. Okay, and we helped them by suggesting, okay, they start off with the past wins that they had within their district. We also asked them to present their present needs that they currently have in the district. And we also asked to tell us about their future advocacy that they need from the district. The Downtown Brooklyn Partnership presented, also the Dumbo Improvement District presented, Myrtle Avenue, Fulton Avenue Business, Alliance, Montague Street, Atlantic Avenue, North Flatbush. They all have about 3 to 5 minutes to present their different concerns. We actually listened to them, and after we listened to them, we had a question and answer phase with them. At the end of that, we actually sat down and we did a whiteboard, and based on the input from the bids, we then had an outline for the beginning responses for fiscal 23 statement of district needs. Based on that, and by the way, Taya, thank you very much. You did a very good job setting this up, organizing it, and also putting together what we're currently looking at right now. She did an awesome job, Taya, and I just want to mention that. But based on what they said, one of the things we're looking at, and it's interesting this came up, the York Street F-stop. We mentioned that this is something that has to be taken care of. Obviously, this is something that's the entire district is behind. We also talked about social services. We talked about open streets. We talked about the NYPD support. Currently right now, there's a lot of crime occurring right now throughout the district. Okay, and we were concerned about that, especially after hours. A lot of stores are being robbed. Okay, we also mentioned sanitation, which is also another issue that's currently being addressed right now, but this is something that the bids are also concerned about. We also mentioned we need to expand broadband, both to schools, parks, so forth and so on, in areas that people don't have access to that. Traffic enforcement. We also mentioned that this is a concern with the bids, and also deliveries. You have a lot of trucks that are blocking the paths throughout the streets. Okay, restaurant aid, that's being addressed already. Okay, but that's something that the bids were also concerned about. And the other thing that just came up we all had an issue with vending trucks and carts. One of the biggest problems we've been hearing from the bids is that you'll have an individual, for instance, an ice cream store, and they're paying into the bid, and then you have an ice cream truck parked outside in competition with them. Okay, and that's a problem because they're not paying into the bid, but they're benefiting from all the money that the ice cream store is paying. And we wanted to do something about that. I don't know if that's actually been addressed, but this is something that's been going on for quite some time, and the bids are concerned about that. Finally, we're talking about also deliveries. A lot of restaurants are basically surviving by deliveries, but the thing is 30% of their cost is going to the deliverer, okay? So even if they're basically paying out to get something, they're doing deliveries to actually maintain survivorship, 30% of all the income that they're coming is then going to the app that's actually being used to actually set up the delivery. And we want to put a cap on that. And finally, the reduction of ownership of commercial rent. Mr. Schumer or Chuck basically mentioned that they're going to get 6 months of funds. So that will definitely help them. And then finally, once we did that, we actually then discussed the resource fair. What I want to do right now is open this up to the entire board. Anyone who's interested in helping us out with the resource fair that's going to happen in June, we would like to have people actually volunteer to my co-chair. And by the way, I apologize. My co-chair is Denise Peterson. Ms. Peterson is actually working with that. I apologize, Ms. Peterson. I was a little flummoxed because of Chuck. Okay. But Ms. Peterson is working with the with the Brooklyn Navy Yard to set this up. It's all conditional on whether or not we can actually have this fair with social distancing. Because if we have it online, we don't want to do it in June. We'll wait till September where people can actually do face-to-face. And that's my report.
Thank you, Bill. Next committee to report is on Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. I'm Barbara Zoller-Gringer, along with Andrew Lastawecki, the co-chairs of the Parks Committee. I just first want to mention that our next meeting is Monday night, April 19th, and we're going to have a large representation of park friends groups presenting. If you're interested in hearing more about the parks and playgrounds in the neighborhood, or you're interested in setting up a friends group for your favorite park or playground, please come to the meeting. It should be very interesting. The Parks Committee continues to be very busy. We have a lot going on. At our last meeting, we heard from the New York City Parks Department Public Art Coordinator. If you're familiar with Clumber Corner, which when you walk off the Brooklyn Bridge in Brooklyn, if you turn left diagonally across the street is the corner. It's basically a hill. There's going to be an art installation there, very interesting. It's called Roots of Tuckahoe Marble. It's basically taking a branch from the pando tree, which is in part of an organism, I'm sorry, of trees in the Utah Fish Lake National Forest. It also involves molten glass and marble. It's a very interesting sculpture. And in addition, there's a QR code, which if you access it, you'll be able to hear the sounds of the trees. It's very interesting. So stay tuned. That should be up shortly. We also heard from the executive director of Photoville. As you know, Photoville has been all around the downtown area, particularly in the park. We've talked about it before. The exhibits really stayed up quite a long time, and they're working on the next Photoville Festival, which should be later this year. And the Fence Project, which you've all seen, I hope, is now active in 11 cities throughout the U.S. and Canada. We then had a presentation from the Parks Department concerning Fort Greene Park. You may be aware that there was a memorial plaque put up there in 1976 in honor of the American Bicentennial by Spain to honor or commemorate the 156 Spanish soldiers lost during the Revolutionary War. And I believe they are buried along with many other soldiers under the park. Apparently that plaque did not go through the normal process to be reviewed. There were many misspellings, and over the years it wore away. In 2015, it was removed and put into the visitor center, so you could visit it there. So they're now putting together a new plaque along with the approval of the Spanish Consulate, the Spanish Institute, the Fort Greene Park Conservancy. It's going to be a plaque talking about the original plaque and put into a boulder on the hill, not too far, I think, from the visitor center. We did approve the plaque and asked that they consider moving it to another place that might be a better place for it. And the representative was very willing to listen to our concerns. And finally, we heard from Eleni Daisy Vero from the Economic Development Corporation talking about Willoughby Square. 2 years ago, you may remember, the community board voted to name that abolitionist park. And she was at our meeting to tell us that since this park area, or this Willoughby Square, which you may be familiar with, is going to be managed by the Downtown Partnership. Right now, the EDC is overlooking it. It is not part of the Parks Department, and therefore is not mapped for being a park. And accordingly, after 2 years, they told us now for the first time that it cannot be called a park. Most of the members of the Parks Committee were very concerned about this, and so I think she's going to come back and talk further about it. We did not take any vote on a possible other name. I think people were very concerned that this area has been talked about as a park for many, many years at this point. I think people were just very concerned, why can't this be called a park? So to be continued. And that's our update.
Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate it. Next committee to report, Transportation and Public Safety.
Good evening. I'm Juliette Cullen-Chung, Chair of the Transportation and Public Safety Committee, and my co-chair is Cheryl Gelbs. Last month, we had the MTA come to answer questions that we had submitted in advance. Mr. Andrew Inglesby responded to our questions. He is a regular visitor to the committee. The three top things we discussed were York Street Station, ADA accessibility, and one thing I'd like to note is the Clark Street Station. So with regard to the York Street Station, we got news that the MTA is actively studying adding a second means of egress to that station. So he didn't give us any specifics on whether it was going to be an elevator or whether it was another set of stairs, but he promised that he would be back to the committee in a few months, not in a year, to give us an update once those studies are more solidified. With regard to ADA accessibility, which is something that we are constantly advocating for, he gave us the update that the elevators at the Borough Hall Station, the 4-5 elevators, were just installed, that there will be ADA upgrades to the Class G station and the Hoyt-Schermerhorn ACG station. He did not give us a timeline on those. And then finally, for Clark Street, as we know, there's going to be a full closure of that station for 7 months for the elevators to be repaired. And he basically said that the contract is likely to be awarded in the next several months. We also discussed planning together, but as there is a larger meeting about that, I think that would be the appropriate place to further those discussions. Tomorrow is our next committee meeting. We're going to be speaking about the ferry ADA improvements, which have resulted in the 8 to 10 week closure of the ferry at the Dumbo Pier 1 location. We're going to be talking about zoning for transit accessibility, commuter bus lines, and getting an update from DOT on the Brooklyn Bridge bike lanes. Thanks.
Thank you, Juliet. Next committee to report, Youth Education and Cultural Affairs.
Good evening. I'm Betty Freibush. Dorothea Thompson Manning is our co-chair. At our March meeting, the executive superintendent and high school superintendents of districts 13, 15, and some other districts that comprise Brooklyn North spoke of the various programs and initiatives that support the young people. We were especially concerned with the high school students in our district. Currently, the focus is on returning high school students to the buildings where possible. They're planning for summer school, and we've seen currently in the media that this is going to be a very robust summer school program, not only for students who are behind, but for all students who want enrichment and to be with their friends, to go on cultural trips, and so on. So they're planning for that, as well as a full return in the fall. The student sports and the PSAL are starting and will run through the summer, which is also something that brings students in and is a very positive development. The district professionals are continually engaged in their own learning to improve student outcomes and so on. And I thought it would be interesting to share that they are all reading and discussing a book together. The book is called Cultivating Genius by Dr. Muhammad. So that might be an interesting book to pick up. We also heard from a group called Teams for Food Justice, who are engaged with the Urban Assembly Unison School in Clinton Hill. It's a middle school, and they teach the students how to grow food hydroponically, and they have distributed tons of food, literally tonnage of food to the community. And they also give students grow kits that students who can't get out, to the school can start to grow some food at home. Additionally, our committee agreed to work with the HES committee and the district office of the DOE on asthma awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you to all of the chairs of the respective committees who reported tonight. Your work is never forgotten. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Moving to the next item on the agenda, this is where we have our community agencies and community partners. I would ask that any of the community partners that are still on the phone or the agencies where you would normally have the sign-up sheet if we were in person, I would ask that you please identify yourself in the chat. And let me start with those that I see. I'm not going to call any particular order, but let me start with the library system.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Rachel Tiemann with the Center for Brooklyn History with the Brooklyn Public Library. And we are continuing to serve the Brooklyn Heights community with lobby service Monday through Friday, 10 to 4 for holds pickup and book returns. I wanted to just plug a few things, and then my colleagues will also speak right after me. We have two programs that I want to promote this month. The Red Hawk Native American Arts Council is going to be doing a virtual program for us on April 20th at 7 p.m. They are a Brooklyn-based organization. They will be talking about objects and artifacts from tribes and nations across the country, in particular the Eastern Woodlands nations, and talking about the difference in culture and history and artwork of the different tribes across the country. The other program I want to plug is BPL Presents. Will be doing an author talk on April 27th at 7 p.m. Fatima Sheikh and Jennifer Egan, you may know Jennifer Egan from Manhattan Beach and A Visit from the Goon Squad. They will be doing a talk about Fatima's new book, Economy Hall, The Hidden History of a Free Black Brotherhood. The reason I mention this is that our Brooklyn Heights Friends group was instrumental in helping to make this connection with Fatima, and I will be introducing her representing the Brooklyn Heights Library. The book is wonderful, glowing reviews all over the charts, and it's about a group of freed Black men in New Orleans in the 1800s who were lifting each other up as business entrepreneurs and also including marginalized men, all men, but from throughout the city and trying to promote each other's work and promote each other in general. So it should be a really exciting author talk. And I just wanted to say, system-wide, we'll be starting BPL's Whispering Libraries. And it's really it's a lot more than a whisper. So they're curated playlists of music, poetry, oral history, and spoken literature that will be played outside of libraries after hours and at specific times of day at 10 of the libraries in Brooklyn. There also will be volunteer cyclists riding around Brooklyn with speakers on the backs of their bikes, also playing these curated playlists. And if you are interested in being a volunteer cyclist for this initiative, riding around in your bike with a speaker behind you, I'm talking to you, Senator Schumer, please email jwhitney@bklynlibrary.org. Don't worry, I'll drop this in the chat. And off to my colleagues.
you. Tracy, are you with us?
Yes, I'll go next. This is Tracy at Clinton Hill. I am proud to announce that Clinton Hill, as well as Walt Whitman, are now part of Brooklyn Reach. We have our Wi-Fi signal is 24/7 and it's extending 300 feet in all directions. So right now, if you sit on the benches outside of Clinton Hill, you have really excellent Wi-Fi, and we will soon have furniture where you'll be able to sit at our chairs and furniture and use the excellent Wi-Fi. In addition, the Friends of Clinton Hill are having their 3rd local artisan craft fair. This is a really great way for people who have never participated in craft fairs to have their first craft fair. I put information in the chat. You can email me to get an application. Applications will be available from April 16th through May 14th. The event is going to be on June 19th. We have a wide range of products from people who live in the community board, and the previous 2 events were great. This is going to be outdoors, and we're really looking forward to it. And it's Kat here.
Yes. Hi, Tracy. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel, as well. And of course, as always, thank you very much, Community Board 2, Chair Singletary, and what an honor it was to hear from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. That was amazing. What a treat. So I'm here to actually talk about some outdoor things as well across the system. The library is launching 22 outdoor reading rooms this month, and that'll include a mix of sidewalk, street seating, and as Tracy just mentioned, extended Wi-Fi will be at the Walt Whitman and Clinton Hill branches, along with that outdoor seating. And the idea here is to duplicate our indoor branch spaces, offering places for folks to sit and talk, read, use the Wi-Fi, or just relax, especially as the weather gets nicer, right? So we'll have furniture and book carts for browsing will be set out at these select locations. And again, that's Walt Whitman and Clinton Hill in this immediate area. By the way, in Dumbo, the Annex Library, we have a little informal one, so please drop by if you haven't already. I'd also like for everyone to save the date, Saturday, June 5th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Your local librarians will be in Fort Greene Park with the bookmobile, story times, resume help, book match live, and lots more. So come out and say hi to, I think all 3 of us will be there. I'm not totally sure. I can't speak for everyone. And of course, lots of our colleagues. So you can look up a little bit more information about all of the outdoor programming going on our series page, BPL Outdoors. 2 last things really quickly I want to mention. As part of Brooklyn Bridge Park's Earth Day celebrations on Saturday, April 24th, I'm going to be doing a Earth Day story time in person, socially distanced, all precautions taken. That is through a lottery registration. So if you have little ones or have little ones in your circles, please be aware of that. And then I'm not sure if my dear friend Richard Morrow is here, but I'm partnering with the Red Cross of Greater New York to offer a couple virtual preparedness workshops for children as well as adults. So I'll drop the link in for that. That'll be in May. And thank you again so much for having us as always, and good night.
Mr. Chair, I have a question that I may ask.
Yeah.
I had a question for Rachel. Rachel, do you have any idea when the new Brooklyn Heights library will be open? Is there a date set for that?
There isn't an exact date, but it's slated to be fall of this year.
Thank you.
And we are all very excited about it. We're looking forward to it as much as you probably are.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, librarians. We appreciate your support and always appreciate that we can count on you. We know it'll always be a 3-person report, and we look forward to that. So thank you. I appreciate that. Next up, we have Ethan from the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Ethan, you on mute? Can you hear me?
Yes, Chair Singletary, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Don't worry about it.
All right, and I'm looking at my camera, my view, my background looks a little jaundiced, so I'm not sure if that's on everyone's screen, but apologies for that. That was, it's a hard act to follow earlier today. Anytime you go after Bill Flournoy, it's always hard.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the difficulty of trying to outdo the library. Okay, got it.
Or Majority Leader Schumer. I want to speak briefly tonight just about a few of our programs now that we're starting to return to public programming. Forgive me if I'm reading some of this. You know, I've been out of the exhibits and programs department for a few months, and they've added a lot of programming since I left because of the improved public health situation. Some of these are taking place now. Some are going to be taking place in May, but I'm going to cover them all because the signups for them will be before the next board meeting, full board meeting. The first thing I want to talk about is drawing history. I'm going to drop the link in. This is season 1 of our new series for kids called Creative History, and it launches this Friday. This series pairs together art objects and hands-on making activities, so students learn about history and art at the same time. The series is online, students can follow along at home, and the lessons are primarily designed for students in grades 2 to 8. And each season will have a different medium. Season 1 is drawing, season 2 is painting, etc., and that will continue on. So let me just drop that in the chat. And then let me talk next about, some of you may have seen that BAM has announced their season, and we are included in their one-on-one program, their concert series. That's it's going to bring together solo artists and members of the public for private, socially distant performances. These will take place in large spaces at the Yard, probably at Building 77 in floors 15 and 16, but we're not sure yet. And this will allow for social distancing and allow people a moment of quiet and pause, and encourage audience and musicians to reconnect after a long period of us all being separated. BAM hasn't released the tickets yet, but the event will be happening over 2 weekends, May 8th and 9th and May 15th and 16th. And again, I'm going to drop, after I speak, I'm going to drop the link in the chat and you can sign up for alerts for that series. Third, I just want to talk briefly about Elegy. It's a public art installation created by Yard artist Teishi Wushbard. The work references a prayer flag and acts as a quiet commentary on the tremendous loss of life in the pandemic. It's composed of a 20-foot by 20-foot photo silk, and it's installed in the open expanse that reflects the light, shadows, and air that move through the atrium of Building 92. So that's been closed for quite a while, but it'll be open for this art exhibit. You can reserve your tickets now for 3 dates. Again, I'll put the links in. That's May 13th, May 20th, and May 22nd. And then lastly, I'm going to drop in the link to the virtual tour for the public art exhibit at Building 77. I mentioned that last time. So this will be, I'll drop in the virtual tour so you can see it from home if you'd like, or again, if you want to come to Building 77, you can drop on in and see those artists and their works. And also get a chance to eat and drink at Building 77. I'll drop in the link for Building 77 and you can see the places you may want to visit. Click on their individual links to see the hours that some are operating at different hours than normal, but they're all trying to get back to a full schedule. And lastly, Juliet mentioned that the ferry stops are going to be closed at Dumbo and South Williamsburg. You know, we were very excited in 2019 to bring the ferry to the Yard, and it was the first one at a job site. And we are on the Astoria line. So if you normally take the ferry from Dumbo or South Williamsburg to get to Wall Street or 34th Street, you can actually come to the Navy Yard and jump on the Astoria line and head to Wall Street or 34th Street. You just walk up to Building 77 at the corner of Vanderbilt and Flushing, walk inside the building, go to the security guard and just the security desk and just let them know you'd like to hop on the ferry, and they'll let you through the gates to get on the ferry. That's all I have for now. I'll drop in these links. Having a little technical difficulty, but I'll get them in the chat in just a second. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ethan, by the way, if you can't get it in the chat for whatever reason, you can always email the board office and we'll make sure we'll disseminate it.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you. So based on what I have here, I don't see any other representatives from our city agencies or community partners. So I'm going to move along to item number 10. Are there any community board members who have any other business or items they wish to discuss at this time, recognizing that is this the period where you have the 2-minute rule? So it's not an endless conversation, but should you have it, let's try to keep it to at least 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There is just one minor correction to the health report, and that is that the community with the lowest vaccination rate is Fort Greene. It's not Clinton Hill. So I just wanted to make that correction for the record.
Okay. Thank you for that. But, just to kind of amplify John's point, it does either community, it still sits within community board too. So, we are a community board where if you look at the construct of our district, it is many levels on the wealth paradigm and then the gaps that go associated with the disparities that exist in our community. So another reason why it's always important for us to be vigilant in the way we represent all of the constituents of our district. So thank you for that correction and that update, John. Appreciate it.
And if I could add, Mr. Terry, we don't, in my estimation, we need to talk more about the Fort Greene public housing. When we talk about the BQE, additionally, there are 140,000 upwards of vehicles that pass through that expressway every day. It becomes elevated after the cantilever and goes through the Fort Greene public housing projects. They too, as a result of that, have the highest asthma rate in the city of New York. So we're trying to focus on the least amongst us, and if we can pay a little bit more attention to the Fort Greene public housing, there are 4 housing developments in Central District 2, and all 4 of them are in Fort Greene.
Agreed, duly noted. We'll definitely work together to see how we can come up with a mechanism to make sure that their concerns are never forgotten. I'm sorry, that was muffled. Who was that?
Mr. Singletary.
Hey, Victor, your reception's a little fuzzy. Can you get to a better spot?
I need the person that Chuck Schumer mentioned. I think it was Harry, I think his name. He deals with transportation.
Yes.
Can somebody text me? Is that
So
possible?
the board officers take care of that for you. We'll get you, Harry. Yeah, the board office will definitely get that information to you. All right, thanks for joining. Any other board members? Okay, let me pivot now to item number 11, community forum. This is where non-community board 2 members have an opportunity to raise concerns or share information. I would ask that if you are new to the community board, this is your first meeting, that you would identify your name with your first and last name and speak slowly so we can record it for the minutes. And if you could put your name in the chat, so therefore we can properly acknowledge that you have requested an opportunity to speak.
Chair Singletary, I have a written request in the chat from Raul Rothblatt.
Okay. What's the request?
I'd like to for 2 minutes.
Mr. Rothbard, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, are you telling us something new that we haven't already heard?
Oh, yeah. So there's tons of new stuff. I don't think.
Okay, so just before you jump in, I just remind you have 2 minutes.
Sure, I'll try to keep it less than that.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raul Rothblatt. Thank you all for staying here and listening to me and supporting Community Board 2. The city has bought 227 Duffield. So there was a part of one of the debates was the ownership of the property, but it's now owned by the city, and we've still been working very hard to turn it into a cultural center. So this is going to be a long-term process, but I want to let you know that has continued. And I just want to thank Assembly Member Joanne Simon and Council Member Steve Levin for writing new letters of support for our Sisters in Freedom Project. We're still moving forward on that. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate your update. Any other community members? Well, everyone, thank you so much for participating this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there any
So moved.
discussion on the
So
motion?
moved.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.